few weeks ago, I took a trip to Canada with our friends at American Marksman to understand what is happening with our neighbors to the north. Now, of course, you may have seen the headlines that gun confiscation was on the horizon, but actually, the day that we left, that gun confiscation was being implemented. They're now in a pilot program that they are looking to buy back guns from its citizens, guns the government never owned in the first place. On this trip, I was able to sit down with Rod Giltaca from CCFR, the leading gun rights organization in Canada, to understand what is actually going on. Are the rumors that we're hearing stateside as bad as it actually is? And I'm here to tell you, it is that bad. This is a cautionary tale for Americans and for Canadians to understand what is happening in your homeland. Originally, this video was set to release at the end of this year. However, because of the pressing nature of what is happening in Canada, we felt the need that it needed to come out now. Please enjoy the interview with me and Rod Giltaca, and be sure to watch to the end. If you're not a member of CCFR, if you live in Canada, I would urge you to join. And of course, we would love your support here stateside at the National Association for Gun Rights. Man, thank you so much for having me out here. There's not many places in America that are this beautiful, and here in Canada, I mean, I don't think there's anything like this in the world. I'm Taylor Rhodes. I'm with the National Association for Gun Rights. We're just now headquartered out of Greenville, South Carolina. We just made a big move from Colorado to there to escape a lot of the problems that you're facing here in Canada, unfortunately, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Man, I really appreciate you having me here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and we've got a lot to talk about. Of course, we met earlier. I'm Rod Giltaca from the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, and we're headquartered out of our nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario. And it's going to be an interesting chat today. There's lots to talk about. There's a lot going on.
So, as an American, we talked a little bit earlier about just kind of the political system and how the government basically can do whatever they want. Tell me a little bit about that political landscape, how things work here, and like what the numbers look like.
Well, Canada operates under the Westminster parliamentary system. That was, of course, imported by Britain, by the English when they first came to Canada. And we've been under that system ever since. And in that system, basically the government has virtually unlimited power. So that's definitely a problem. We're very, as it applies to firearm ownership, we're very different than the United States. That's also a problem. So basically, when it comes to firearm ownership, or firearm rights as it were, we have really a few problems. We're under the British parliamentary system, which allows our government to have virtually unlimited power. We have no codified right to own firearms. We actually don't have any codified right to property.
Really?
Yeah, we have some older documents, but in modern Canada, the courts seem to just ignore anything.
So does that apply to, no right to property, so you have no right to own a home or own land, the government basically could seize that at any point?
If they're determined enough and they want to allocate enough resources to fighting you, then they can pretty much take what they want. And it's interesting because, there's a big, what I would say, a cultural problem in Canada. We have a lot of activist judges. We have a lot of activists in the bureaucracy, and that makes for a pretty deadly mix.
Right.
Because even if you fight the government, as we have, we put over $3 million into a lawsuit that was asked the court for a determination on property rights, determination on whether or not we can use firearms for self-defense, whether or not the government can use things like executive orders to ban billions of dollars of property. And the court basically, so far, we're going to the Supreme Court hopefully, but in the federal court and the federal court of appeal, they said, yeah, the government can do whatever it wants to whoever it wants, whenever it wants, for any reason it wants. And that's absolutely terrifying, of course.
Right. So, I mean, obviously in America, we have that beautiful 27-word amendment that gives your right to own a firearm. With here, no right to own a firearm, no right to property. Where does the battle really? What does that battlefield look like here?
Well, there's a really interesting situation here. So, I was born in Canada 56 years ago. And when I was growing up, we didn't have all the problems that we have with the abuse that we're experiencing from the federal government on many different fronts, right? Like on many different, for many different reasons. And I thought long and hard, like why is this just a recent phenomenon? Pretty much since 2015. Since the government of Justin Trudeau under the Liberal Party got power in 2015. And the answer that I've come up with after thinking about it for years is Canadians, the unlimited power of the government always existed. But back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s, Canadians would have never tolerated this kind of abuse or malfeasance. And we still have a vibrant firearms gun culture in Canada, but people wouldn't have put up with it. For some reason, people will put up with it. Now you have a government that says, oh, well, we do have all this power. Let's use it. And they don't care about wielding that power whatsoever. And now we're really feeling it.
So when I looked online before I came here, I wanted to say it was like estimated between 2.5 million to 5 million gun owners in Canada. Is that about right?
Yeah, about 2.4 million licensed gun owners because we have licensing here. And then there's probably, 2, maybe 3 million people that are in peaceful, though unauthorized possession of firearms.
So is that licensing? It sounds like a gun registry. Is that what it is?
So there are some firearms that are registered in Canada. Handguns are registered with the government. AR-15s and a handful of other firearms are registered, but largely long guns, so rifles and shotguns for a hunting or sporting purpose aren't registered, but there are a lot of workarounds.
So do you still have to go through a background check process though, right?
Well, what's different between the United States and our system is we get a background check every 24 hours, basically electronically, if you have a license. But when we go to buy firearms, we don't have a background check because it was already done that morning.
Right.
So in a way, for a while, it was actually in some ways a little less restrictive and a little bit more difficult to track firearms than the American system. Because if you go to a big retailer, you're going to get a background check right then and there. And so it's like, obviously, Taylor just bought a gun at this store, so they know that kind of stuff. Whereas before, they didn't know.
So so on that front, were they dealing with basically like credit card merchant codes was the only way that they could track a firearm, or was there any type of serialization that they were tracking at all, or no?
So for a number of years, they weren't tracking anything. So 15 years ago, we had a long gun registry. So every firearm was tracked, was registered. That got repealed by the conservative government of Stephen Harper. It was ending the Long Gun Registry Act. So all that information, they lost track of about 7.5 million firearms. Then the Trudeau Liberals came back and they reinstituted the ledger system. So if I were to go to a retailer and bought a long gun, just a regular shotgun, the serial number, the make, model, my license number, all that stuff was recorded at the retail level, though it wasn't electronic. So it's in a book.
Right. That's how we have in the U.S. with our 4473. In theory, they don't keep those electronically. However, there is speculation that the ATF, when a gun shop goes out of business, they hand over those records. There is speculation that those are being digitally converted.
Yeah.
They're scanning them in. And now with AI, you can look up basically anything via PDF almost in seconds. So it's a danger in America too on that front of we don't have gun registration, but that NICS check, the 4473 that the FBI and many states have their own. In Colorado, the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, runs their own background check, and it is a registration at the end of the day.
It is,
and that's, I think, for Americans that are watching this, I think that's why it's, we see this in the States, and we're seeing this here. Is oftentimes they don't really go for the whole enchilada the first time.
No.
It's incrementalism, and first they want to know where the guns are. Then they want to say, okay, well, maybe we'll restrict, how quickly you can buy a gun, or how many guns you can buy at one time, or how old you have to be to buy a gun. And then it's, after 10 or 12 of those bills pass, it's like, what rights do we have left? And here in Canada, without that right, man, I feel for you in this fight.
Well, it's interesting. I've owned guns for not my whole life, but for just probably shy of 20 years. And I got very interested in it. And, when I first got into owning guns, all the old gun owners, I'm like, why are they all so angry all the time? And they're yelling about registration leads to confiscation. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, man, I got AR-15s, I got handguns, I got all kinds of stuff, right? And then after a while, you start learning about the history of gun control in Canada, and it's pretty dark. But I think the whole point of going down this road is, and this is really important, is that at some point you will get to the end of that road.
Yeah.
And in Canada, despite how hard we've worked to try to hold this back, and contributing that we have no codified rights to own firearms or property at all, and the political class brags about that for some reason, like it's a good thing. And then, of course, the unlimited power of the government. We are actually in Canada, we're there. Right. There's a massive gun ban. Some portion of them were registered, but there's ways to track the rest. Not all of them, to be honest. But we're actually the cautionary tale for Americans. We are at the end of the road when they are taking basically everything other than bolt actions, lever actions, brake actions, and pump actions. That's what we're going to end up left after this round of prohibitions and confiscations. Right. And then they'll go after the next most dangerous firearm. So we are here.
Well, when we were coming up here, you were talking about that there was, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, was it an elected official that was saying that, or maybe an activist that was saying that we should even ban, glass optics? I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, well, there is no end to the insanity, and this is a cultural shift, right? This has never been what Canada was like. I think that you have a political class, the ruling class in Canada, don't think that they see us as subjects, not citizens, right? And subjects don't get firearms, right? So, but we've been able to hold that back over the years. But now, Justin Trudeau and his Liberals got elected in 2015. He got reelected 3 times. I mean, he was the most disastrous, most incompetent individual to ever hold office in Canadian history. I know it sounds like a big claim, but I think it's true. But he got reelected 3 times because there's a culture war running in parallel with the war on firearm ownership. Right. And we've been so drastically affected by that. And in this situation, the big difference is the codified rights. You guys have the Second Amendment. When worse comes to worse, you can pull that out. It's like Second Amendment, man. And, full stop. We got nothing.
Well, I mean, even in the U.S., even with the Second Amendment, and how clear that I see it, and many gun owners across the United States see it, the example that I like to use is Barack Obama, for example. Barack Obama, whether you like him or you don't like him, he is one of the world's experts in the United States Constitution. He has a law degree from Harvard or Yale or one of the Ivy League schools. I don't remember exactly. And he knows the Constitution front, back, sideways, but he doesn't care. He wants to find workarounds, and we're seeing that in the U.S., where even though that we have the Heller decision, which basically said if a firearm is in common use, you can't ban it. Then you have the Bruin decision that changed the test of how gun laws are viewed and how they're challenged. We're still in America right now fighting in the courts because we have those same activist judges that are doing everything in their power to try to rewrite history, to change the way that America goes forward. Actually, in a case that I'm a part of in Colorado, one of the attorneys for the state basically in Bruin, they said that it has to match the text, history, and tradition of the Second Amendment, meaning if it wasn't a law at the founding, it probably shouldn't be a law now. One of the state attorneys literally tried to argue, well, slaves didn't have guns. They weren't free people at the time. Regular Americans could own guns, but slaves couldn't. So literally the state attorney was saying, well, all citizens should be slaves to the state. And I think that's where you're finding here in Canada that, yeah, they don't want you to be armed. They want you to be slave to the state. You know, you'll live a free enough life and you'll be happy and fine. And, you know, you can go to Costco and buy whatever you want and you'll die free and happy. But really that idea of, you know, being able to defend yourself, being able to hunt for your own food, being able to live as a free man. I mean, that's an important right. And the way I see it is rights are not given by government. They're protected by government. They're given by God. They're natural rights. And it's really a shame that here in Canada that they're not recognizing those God-given rights.
Yeah, they're at war with that idea.
Yeah.
They, you know, independent people, not to dive down the rabbit hole, but the governments don't like independent people typically. And what we're seeing is obviously it's people that run for government, worse and worse people are attracted by government. So it's almost the attrition of good people. So certainly in Canada, that is in our face right now, just terrible people. And the problem is those kinds of people want to consolidate power. And whether or not it sounds like a conspiracy theory or not, it's true. So they want to educate you. They want to dictate your values to you. They want to discipline you when you misbehave. They want to provide, you know, they want to be responsible. They want to hold the strings to your health care. They want to control whether or not you own firearms. They want to control what you say. They like all these things. And it has just gotten spiraled completely out of control in Canada. And, you know, let me share this. This gives you an idea. The Trudeau government, we have a different figurehead now, but it's still all the same people that are elected officials. They banned single-use plastics. So that's plastic straws and plastic bags for shopping. Mm-hmm. And there was a court battle that was going on alongside of our court battle for property rights to own a firearm based on self-defense, and the abuse of certain tools like our equivalent to executive orders. Mm-hmm. So they're called orders in council. The court basically laughed us off, like, you don't have any of those things.
Wow.
And, you know, for whatever their reasons were. At the same time, a parallel court found that banning plastic bags and plastic straws was government overreach. They repealed that and made it illegal to basically ban plastic straws and plastic bags. You have a right to those, apparently. Right. It is clown world, upside down world, total lunacy. It's a madhouse.
Right. And,
you know, to fix this that's a whole different conversation, but that's how crazy it is in Canada when you let it get to that point.
Well, let's actually dive into, you know, how do we fix this? And we talked a little earlier about the political system. You basically have a minority government that they do have to go and find conservatives or the folks from Quebec to, what's the party?
The Bloc.
Yeah, to basically pass anything, and they can basically hold an election whenever it's politically advantageous for them to do so. So with that being the case, you know, what does the fight politically look like? I know, you know, in our world, with the National Association for Gun Rights, our whole strategy relies on marrying the legislative season and the election season, basically holding them accountable in the election for what they've done to us, good or bad, in the legislative season. And with, you know, we have very hard and set, you know, election dates. You can probably find election dates for the next 10 years, would be my guess. With that uncertainty, how does the political process change with that uncertainty of, yeah, we know who's in there right now. Maybe we don't in, you know, 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the ultimate home court advantage in Canada, whereas the government, even if it's a minority government, they choose when an election happens. So it's no more than 4 years, but if they get elected 6 months later, they could call their own election. So they sit back and they watch the polls. So if they're a minority, they want majority power, right?
Of course.
So they can sit back and they can call an election anytime. The election periods are really short. I think it's between 39 days and 51 days at maximum.
So you've got 2 months to run program max.
Right. So, I mean, if you can imagine, like in the last election, it was a snap election-ish, and it was 39 days. So for us to mobilize everything we're going to do in the election, it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to have commercials produced and scripts and, you know, get ads out on social media, whatever. Like, we're almost at the end of the election.
Right.
And it's the sitting government that has that advantage, and it's unbelievable, but that's our environment.
Well, you know, one of the things that has taken us a long time, and one of the things we're proudest of with our organization, is passing constitutional carry. Constitutional carry is a kind of really a bold idea that really wasn't popular 15, 20 years ago. Vermont was the first state to ever have it. It was in their constitution that said, if you are legally able to own a firearm, you're legally able to carry that firearm, open or concealed. National Association for Gun Rights has led the charge. There's 29 states. I think we're directly responsible for about 24 of those states. The others were led by other groups or state level organizations. Or frankly, they just went so quick that maybe we had a staffer on the ground. We got them there a week before, but like South Carolina, or excuse me, Louisiana, for example. I mean, we had a staffer on the ground and they passed it like, you know, a week or two later. It was just bang, bang, bang. It just went super quick. But I say all that to say that's been one of our landmark pieces of legislation that we've passed all over the country. More Americans than not are free from the shackles of gun control, of giving a permission slip to the government to exercise your right to carry. However, in all states, Texas actually was one of our most difficult. It took us about 8 years in Texas to pass this. And it was, you know, the same type of elitist politicians that says, I know more than you. You know, you don't need a gun on your person at all times. You can ask permission. And we know better than the average person. Yeah. It's a different situation, but it's similar. It took us that long. And those first few years, our whole goal was to figure out who the bad guys were, putting them on record and saying, you know, John Doe is a Republican. He's from a very red district. He should be voting for this every time, but he's not. Whether he's, you know, subservient to the teachers union or the Chamber of Commerce or whoever was lobbying against it, and getting those people on record and then challenging them in the election, and really not just starting the election period right, you know, when the, you know, 3 or 4 months before the polls open, but starting that, you know, when they get in office and they take that bad vote, of priming that pump with we call it issue discussion, of talking about to their voters of, okay, this guy voted for this. If you care about that, you can't support this guy. Call him. Maybe he'll change his mind. A lot of times pressure works on politicians because at the end of the day, politicians care about one thing and one thing only: their next election. Yeah. And that doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a conservative, a liberal. It doesn't matter. And putting that pressure on them early and keeping that pressure on them with gun owners across that state, man, that has done worlds of impact. I'd love to. We talked earlier. I'd love to help you with any type of strategy like that would maybe push the envelope of. We call it a confrontational model because it is confrontational. You are putting pressure on these politicians to do the right thing, and if they don't, you know, at some point they are going to realize, oh crap, I may not have the votes in my district to win again. And especially in a place like Canada, when things are moving so quickly, that could really change their perspective really quick of putting that pressure on them. I know I kind of just rambled there, but when y'all are doing, when y'all are lobbying for maybe it's against a firearm confiscation ban, or maybe it's for, trying to get the most out of a legislative session or a parliament session. What does that strategy look like for you guys?
Well, we do a variety of different things because we don't have, again, that codified right or what have you. So we are extremely active during an election. We were the 5th largest third-party advertiser in the last federal election. So that's a huge achievement. That's a historic achievement for the gun lobby in Canada because we're typically smaller groups.
Right.
But we do some lobbying. We try to talk to everybody. But the approach that the Liberal Party has taken, they've been in power now for 11 years. And their approach is you don't get access to anybody. You don't get a meeting with the Minister of Public Safety. You don't get a meeting with the Prime Minister. You don't get a meeting with basically anybody. Like you're fully ignored.
Yeah,
you're
we don't get we don't get access either because we're so mean to them.
To Democrats or to
either Republicans or Democrats. Most occasionally, you'll have a few that will say, "Yeah, well, I agree with you," and they'll meet. But the middle of the road Republicans, they don't want anything to do with us because we've been blowing up their phone lines.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories was in the Colorado State Capitol. They still used faxes up until 2019. And we figured out that we could do a call out to our members and that said, the government's trying to do this, whatever the issue was. I think it was red flag gun confiscation. They're trying to pass red flag gun confiscation. Press 1 to send a fax to your legislator that demanding them to vote no. And at the time, we shut down the entire building's internet server because there were so many faxes going into the building. I got a call from their IT guy, like, please stop. And I basically told the IT guy,
negative.
I'm sorry, we can't stop. If you want to start whipping votes for us, have at it.
Yeah.
But putting that pressure on them and really causing them political discomfort is where we've seen a lot of big strides.
Well, we've done a lot of that. We've wrapped a 40-foot RV and parked that in front of, with Justin Trudeau's face on it and some other of the MP's face on it, and parked that in front of their campaign office during elections. We've done social media advertising. We've done television advertising. We have a nationally broadcast television show that's been running. We're in our 5th year.
Wow, that's impressive.
We do a lot of work to try to wake people up and try to get them a dog into the fight.
Right.
And put pressure on politicians. We've done letter writing campaigns. We've done constituency calling campaigns. We've done all kinds of stuff. But the political system is just so different in Canada. All the votes are whipped. You don't get to run as a Liberal unless you hold toe the line, right? End of story, like full stop. And the problem is that there's just not enough gun owners in proportion to the population in Canada. There's not enough people that have an actual interest. Most Canadians, they just don't care either way because they've never owned a firearm. They don't know why people own firearms. Right. We've done a lot of work, public relations work to teach people that, like, what's at stake. And in Canada, like, we have 1,000 fish and game clubs in this country, representing billions in real estate and billions of improvements upon that real estate. These clubs, many of them have been around for over 100 years.
Wow.
Like, there are millions of people. There are more people, get this, there are more people that are licensed to own handguns in Canada than play organized hockey.
Oh my gosh.
But you will not see that on legacy media in Canada.
Right.
We're like some dirty secret. We're not to be spoken of. It is a tremendous challenge, the situation we're in. And we are losing despite everything we're doing.
Right. One of the founders of the United States basically had this idea when the country was being formed and starting this revolution against Great Britain, that his goal was to spread campfires of freedom across America, ultimately building a wildfire of freedom. And that goal really started with about 3% of the population, which is about what you have here. And organizing and finding those people and getting them involved, getting them on your list so you can fight back. I mean, man, that's so critical, and it sounds like you guys are on the right track.
Well, but we're not winning.
We're not winning, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and another challenge for us is a great percentage of that 2.4 million licensed gun owners are specifically hunters or casual firearm owners that own a lever action or a bolt action. And culturally in Canada, like these guys are like, yeah, good that they banned handguns. Nobody needs a handgun anyway. You guys are the ones that are causing all these problems in the first place with your black rifles and your handguns. So that really, I guess the numbers that I would look at to try to come up with some kind of gauge to figure out how many people really are on side with fighting these prohibitions is probably around 1 million, because there's about 750,000 people that are licensed to own handguns. Not all of them own them, but almost all of them. And then you might have another 300,000 or 400,000 that are really into black rifles. And those people, like the target or sport shooters or recreational shooters, people that have that kind of property, we're the tip of the spear. We're the ones doing all the fighting. And I guess, would that end up, that would be the majority of those 2.4 million people are sitting back going, they're going like, they're never going to come for my hunting rifle, and they're not helping.
Right.
So we've done a lot of work to try to get these guys to realize that once all of us are out of the way, like I did this speech at the Wild Sheep Society, this big dinner, and there's, I don't know, 600 people there. And these are elite hunters, right? Sheep hunters. And I said, think of gun control like a big, long lineup. The sport shooters, the pistol guys, the black rifle guys, we're all at the front of the line. You're way at the back. And the old guy at the very back that's just got a bolt action and a lever action that he inherited from his dad, he's like, there's so many guys up there, I'll never lose what I have.
Right.
And then it's like, well, if you look at what's happened over the last few years with the Liberals and what they've done, banning handguns, banning AR-15s, banning basically all semi-autos, banning semi-auto 22s.
Wow.
Banning everything over 10,000 joules of muzzle energy. So 460s, 50 cals, all gone. I told them, imagine, you know what? A third of that line is gone, and now all of you guys are at the front.
Right.
Like, that's literally where we are. And I'm hoping that message is taking hold, because we are literally months away from confiscation. Months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what does that look like in Canada? I mean, are they knocking on doors? Are they just saying, we'll find you one way or another. We'll wait for you to do something else bad, or is it full blown, just like you'd see in a movie of just, we're taking your guns now, get in the cattle cars.
on mass, I don't think you're going to see that. They're going to target people. I'll probably be targeted.
Yeah.
And anyone that's making any noise or has any kind of public profile, they'll be targeted. But basically what they're doing is they have a web portal. And this is my understanding, it could change. But this is what's been admitted by the Minister of Public Safety. They have a web portal. They're going to allocate, a couple $100 million. They're going to tell gun owners, if you have one of these prohibited firearms, and there's probably, I don't know, there could be 2 million of them. Nobody knows, because the majority of these were never registered.
Right.
But they're going to say, okay, we're opening up the portal on this day. Tell us exactly what you have. Fill out the make, model, serial number for all the guns that you have if you want to get paid for them. But it's going to be first come, first served. So when that budget runs out, and that budget is not even anywhere near what it needs to be, that's it. That's it. We're not paying you. You're just going to have your property confiscated without compensation. And so that creates this kind of race for gun owners. So like for somebody like me, I'm probably sitting on $30,000 worth of guns.
Right.
And I'm like, well, okay, I can have them confiscated for nothing, or I can have them confiscated for compensation.
That's a choice, yeah.
That's a choice I have to make. And I don't want to cooperate with any of this stuff, but I'm like, okay. And then if I don't do it fast enough, I'm not going to get paid anyway.
Right.
So people are going to be racing. Now what they're going to do is they're going to let that, and like a lot of guys are like, well, they'll never come, they're never going to get them all. Compliance is going to be low. I'm not turning mine in. What are they going to do? And it's like, man, they don't care. You don't understand how this works. They're going to roll out some piece of crap of a program. It's going to run out of money. They're going to take, I don't know, 20% of the guns. And that's it. They're just going to leave it like that forever. They're going to be like, okay, it's closed. Now all of you guys are in unauthorized possession of prohibited firearm, which you can get up to 5 years in prison for that. And they're just going to leave it like that forever. So a couple guys will get caught every month because they'll have a house fire and the fire department will be like, oh, there's guns here. And then they'll look at it and be like, this is an IWI X95. Now this is prohib. And they'll have their lives destroyed, and this is the way it's going to go forever. So this is how these people operate.
So are any of the, well, I guess they're not states, provinces, right? Are any of the provinces pushing back on this? Are they saying we're not enforcing this? Or is there any political solution through the provinces here?
So there are a couple of provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta, I guess really are the only ones that have really taken action, but they passed their own firearm acts. They've got a couple of schemes going there. I think both provinces have made it illegal to be a gun confiscation agent without a license from the province, and it's up to them whether they grant those licenses or not. I think Alberta's looking at an Alberta firearms license to protect their. But the problem is the federal government can do whatever they want. They can say, well, we're ignoring that, and you know what? If your guys don't want to get compensation, tell them not to participate. And, if they ever step outside the province, we know that they're in unauthorized possession. We'll arrest them then. There are all kinds of things that the federal government can still do, and they are more than happy to do it.
No, is there an option, let's say in your case, to, let's say before the confiscation date happens, my guess is the government isn't going to pay fair market value. They're going to pay significantly below. Would there be an option to sell those to, maybe the U.S. or, what does that look like?
You can export the firearms, so I would imagine you can get paid for them if you export them. You can sell them to businesses. Businesses will pay you pennies on the dollar because they can't resell them.
Yeah.
They got nothing to do with them, right? Other than if they have an indoor range and they can discharge them there. If they have a prohib license.
Right, and I don't even know what that looks like with some of the import laws into the U.S. Because there are many of how that would even work.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts there because some things aren't legal in the United States or whatever, right?
Or they're heavily controlled, right?
Like we have short-barreled shotguns here. We have short-barreled semi-autos here. But you need an actual license for that in the United States. So those are, what do they call them? Class 3? Class 1?
I think they're Class 3, I believe so.
Yeah, like a short-barreled AR.
Yeah.
Well, we used to be able to have them.
Or is it? I know you got to go through the Form 4 or Form 1. I don't know the classification off the top of my head.
Yeah. So we used to have all these short-barreled semi-autos in Canada. Unlike the United States, right? I got a shotgun over there. I think it's 14-inch barrel. I said 12.5 before, but I think it's 14-inch. So we had all kinds of things. But if I wanted to export that to the United States, now it gets complicated.
Right.
So it's not really a great solution. I guess if I want to kind of turn this around and turn it into a positive direction, because you have unlimited power in Canada, what is done by one government can be completely undone by the next one. The problem is where will there be the political will to do that, right? So if you can imagine the government spends, $2, $3, $4, $5 billion on this program. A bunch of these guns are confiscated and destroyed. Will the next government say, okay, well, we're going to let people buy ARs again and handguns again?
Right.
Now that it's gone that far, will they be like, okay, well, we're just going to make sure you don't lose anything else. So we're going to be in uncharted political territory.
Well, and politics works as inertia. It's very hard to push things uphill. But once the ball gets rolling, it makes it a lot easier. And now that the gun control movement in Canada is moving, it's harder to stop. We've seen that in state legislatures and in Congress at points. That once it gets going, it's a beast that it's very hard to wrangle.
Yeah. Well, the key is to not have that happen in the first place. You have natural advantages in the United States. You have a codified right. You have different states that can regulate firearms in a different manner.
Right.
No province has ever done that other than more restrictions.
Right.
So it's we're at a natural disadvantage. But the message to Americans is don't just fight it every step of the way, because
Right.
you will eventually get to the end of the road where we are.
Well, I tell gun owners all the time, I shoot a lot competitively and just for fun with friends. And going to the gun range, I'll wear a NAGR shirt, and maybe they know who we are, maybe they don't. And they'll say, oh, what is that? I say, oh, it's a gun rights organization. Oh, I love the Second Amendment. I shoot 3,000 rounds a month. I'm like, great. That and a cup of coffee will, keep you happy for, 20 minutes. That does nothing to advance the Second Amendment. Being in the fight and actually caring about what's going on, understanding who your elected officials are, whether that be the President of the United States or your congressman or your state legislator or state senator, in many cases now in states across the country, even their town councils or their city council and sheriff even. Those things matter, and being involved politically right now in the U.S. And it sounds like in Canada is more important than ever for gun owners, because the time to shit or get off the pot, for a lack of a better expression, is now.
Mm-hmm.
People have to rise up and get involved with your local gun rights organization, get organized. Politics is not a lone wolf game. It has to be done in packs. I hear all the time of guys being like, well, I don't like to be a part of a gun rights organization. I'm just going to do this on my own. And they last maybe a month,
Mm-hmm.
and then they fizzle out and we never hear from them again. But the people that are involved with organizations, the people that regularly know what's going on and that are a part of a group that is fighting back, and they know where to point their rifles, for lack of a better example, and know who to target. That's how we win. We win by being organized and fighting back politically. That is the whole goal of our organization. Actually, our mission is not just to be a gun rights organization. It's actually giving our members the tools to fight back.
Yeah.
So we have our members sign petitions. They send emails directly to the lawmakers. We do postcard campaigns where we put a stack of postcards for all of their elected officials that may be voting on a certain policy, and we ask them, we've already printed it for you. In many cases, we already put the stamp on it for you. Sign your name and put it in the mail, and get them and let them know that there's gun owners that are pissed off about this. And we always say that a stack of angry postcards is better than one or two well-written letters, because it shows that, oh my gosh, in my district where people are actually going to vote for me, they may not vote for me again if I don't do what they're demanding me to do. And our goal as an organization is then to let our members know of, okay, did politician X do the right thing? Did they vote the right way? And if they didn't, it's time to set them on fire and blow up their district with mailers and text and commercials and digital ads and all of the political tools that we have to be effective. And we've seen pretty good success of that. And we have partners in foreign countries in Europe that are using a similar strategy, not on the gun issue, but that have seen a lot of success with that style of strategy. And I'm not going to give up hope on Canada. I think while you may be, down 28-3 to use a Super Bowl reference, the game's not over yet, and I think there's a comeback mounting.
Well, I'm not giving up as far as, I'm not going to stop working. We have a couple of Hail Marys left, and we're going to, I told our members that we are either going to fight till the last gun is gone, or fight till we get everything back again. So neither of those two things have happened. So we're going to keep going. But I can't impress upon you enough that we are months away from a huge confiscation program being rolled out. that can happen to you.
Yeah.
It's emotionally absolutely devastating if you think about how important the ability to legally own and use firearms is, and that you have to fight. Now's the time, no matter when, where along that whole line of, total gun firearm related freedom to total confiscation and nothing. Doesn't matter where you are on that journey, the time's now to fight.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sitting down with me and filling me in and the viewers in on where Canada's at, and hopefully I added enough color and questions to demonstrate that message of whether you're in Canada or whether you are in the U.S. The time to get involved is now, and we need you in the fight, whether it be with CCFR or with NAGR. We need you in the fight, and if there's ever anything that we can do to help assist in Canada, I would love to talk with you about what that looks like, whether it be with strategy or whatnot.
I appreciate it.
Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.